Arizona, famous for its endless sunshine, dramatic desert landscapes, and once one of America's most exciting real estate frontiers. But here in 2025, the shine is fading fast. For countless hopeful buyers, the dream of owning property in the Grand Canyon State is twisting into something far darker, a financial trap. Picture saving for years, putting every penny into a down payment, only to watch your home's value shrink, your costs skyrocket, and your so-called investment turn into a weight around your neck. From bustling metro hubs to quiet desert towns, Arizona's housing market has become a minefield. High mortgage rates are just one piece of the puzzle. Overbuilding, surging insurance costs, dwindling water resources, and a retreat of investors are converging into a perfect storm. Some markets aren't just overpriced, they're collapsing, transforming houses into liabilities. So which Arizona cities are now the most dangerous bets for buyers? Today on Housing Truths USA, we're exposing the top 10 worst cities to buy a home in Arizona in 2025. If you've been thinking about putting your money into Arizona real estate, this breakdown might just save your future. At number 10, we have Tucson. Often seen as Phoenix's more relaxed, artsy cousin, Tucson has long attracted those wanting a mix of affordability, cultural depth, and desert scenery. But in 2025, Tucson is becoming a risky gamble for buyers. During the pandemic boom, home prices surged, though not as dramatically as Phoenix. Median values hovered around $370,000, which seemed appealing at first. But here's the issue. Migration into the city has slowed, mortgage rates are stubbornly stuck near 7%, and buyer demand is shrinking. The local economy, anchored by the University of Arizona, healthcare, tourism, and a bit of manufacturing, simply hasn't delivered the wage growth needed to sustain those price levels. Inventory has spiked more than 25% year over year, and homes are now sitting on the market for nearly 80 days before selling. Price cuts are common, and builders who stretched into the suburbs are facing weak demand. Tucson isn't collapsing as hard as Phoenix, but the combination of inflated prices, sluggish incomes, and a cooling market paints a concerning picture. Buyers drawn in by Tucson's charm need to know, in 2025, that peaceful desert escape could quickly transform into a financial headache. Number 9. Prescott coming in at number 9 is Prescott. Nestled among ponderosa pines and well known for its historic downtown, mild climate, and small-town charm, Prescott has long been marketed as the perfect retreat for retirees and second-home buyers looking to escape the heat of the desert. For years, that image fueled strong demand. But in 2025, Prescott's housing market is flashing warning signs that buyers can't afford to ignore. During the pandemic surge, Prescott became a magnet for cash-rich buyers seeking lifestyle rather than affordability. Median home prices climbed to around $550,000, levels that far outpaced local incomes. This jump was largely fueled by retirees spending their nest eggs and out-of-state buyers searching for a scenic second home. But that demand base is fragile, with mortgage rates holding at 7% and the national economy slowing. Retirees are delaying big purchases, and discretionary spending on second homes has cooled sharply. The data paints a troubling picture. Housing inventory has surged by more than 30% year over year, and homes now sit on the market for an average of 95 days before selling. Price cuts are becoming routine, and sellers are increasingly forced to lower expectations. The local job market, rooted in tourism, healthcare, and services for the retiree community, doesn't produce the wage growth needed to backstop such high property values. Add in the rising cost of living and growing wildfire risk in surrounding areas, which has pushed up insurance premiums, and ownership here has become far more expensive than many expected. For buyers, Prescott's beauty and small-town appeal remain undeniable, but in 2025, the financial gamble is real. What once looked like a safe retirement haven now carries the risk of declining values, longer selling times, and higher carrying costs. Prescott still sells a dream of serenity, but the reality of its housing market could turn that dream into a costly misstep. Number 8. Flagstaff. At number 8 is Flagstaff. Perched high in the mountains and surrounded by majestic ponderosa pine forests, Flagstaff has always been a magnet for people seeking cooler weather, outdoor adventure, and a vibrant university atmosphere. It's a city that combines small-town charm with access to world-famous attractions like the Grand Canyon, and for years, that mix fueled incredible demand. But in 2025, the very qualities that made Flagstaff desirable are colliding with harsh market realities. During the boom years, Flagstaff's limited land and high desirability pushed prices into the stratosphere. By mid-2022, median home values reached around $720,000, a staggering figure for a city with modest local wages. Much of that demand was driven by remote workers escaping big cities, wealthy second-home buyers, and investors capitalizing on tourism-driven rentals. But those buyer groups are now shrinking. Higher interest rates, tighter budgets, and softer tourism numbers have taken the wind out of Flagstaff's sails. The current data is sobering. Listings are up roughly 35% year over year, and homes now sit on the market for an average of 110 days. Properties that once sparked bidding wars are now sitting unsold, forcing sellers to reduce prices or offer concessions. Meanwhile, the cost of living in Flagstaff remains steep. Winter brings high utility bills, extra maintenance expenses, and higher costs for essentials compared to the valley. These extra burdens amplify the financial strain for families already stretched by oversized mortgages. Flagstaff is still breathtaking. Its mountain air and lifestyle are hard to match. But for buyers in 2025, that beauty comes at a price that may not hold its value. With affordability out of reach for most locals and demand from remote workers cooling, the risk of negative equity is growing. For anyone considering Flagstaff today, the dream of mountain living may quickly turn into a very expensive reality check. Number 7, Sedona. Number 7 is Sedona, one of Arizona's most iconic destinations. Known for its red rock formations, art galleries, and spiritual retreats, Sedona has long represented exclusivity and luxury. For years, it was seen as the ultimate desert paradise, where buyers were willing to pay almost any price. But in 2025, the housing market here tells a different story. During the peak of the pandemic housing surge, Sedona's limited inventory and global reputation drove prices sky high. Median home values peaked near $950,000, fueled by affluent second home buyers, remote workers with high salaries, and investors banking on short-term rental income. But those drivers have cooled dramatically. Rising mortgage rates, stricter rental regulations, and reduced tourism spending have all weakened demand. The numbers reveal the shift. Inventory has jumped more than 40% year over year, and homes that once sold in just 15 to 20 days now sit unsold for an average of 110 days. Sellers are increasingly offering steep price cuts, sometimes exceeding $100,000, and even throwing in luxury furnishings to sweeten the deal. The urgency that once defined Sedona's market is gone, replaced by hesitation and slow-moving negotiations. Sedona remains visually stunning and culturally unique, but buyers need to see past the postcard. In 2025, this market is oversupplied, overpriced, and increasingly vulnerable to long holding times. For those who buy now, the dream of Sedona living may come with financial regret. So number 6, Marana. At number 6 is Marana, a fast-growing suburban community northwest of Tucson. For years, Marana was the picture of planned development, shiny new master-planned communities, modern schools, and proximity to both desert landscapes and city amenities. But in 2025, Marana is facing the downside of that rapid expansion. Median home prices climbed to around $480,000 during the boom, largely on the promise of affordability compared to Tucson. Builders responded with massive development projects, rolling out thousands of new homes. But with mortgage rates locked around 7%, demand has cooled, leaving buyers hesitant and inventory swelling. Right now, new home inventory has surged more than 40% year over year, and the average time for a new build to sell has stretched to 95 days. Builders are aggressively cutting prices, often between $30,000 and $50,000, while offering free upgrades and covering closing costs to attract buyers. Yet even with these discounts, local incomes averaging around $85,000 per household struggle to support these prices. Marana's story is a warning about unchecked growth. The promise of endless suburban expansion has collided with economic limits. For 2025 buyers, that means shiny new houses can quickly turn into risky investments with little chance of near-term appreciation. Number 5. Holbrook. Coming in at number 5 is Holbrook, a small historic town along Route 66. Once seen as the definition of affordable Arizona housing, Holbrook experienced a surprising surge of interest during the pandemic as bargain hunters and remote workers sought cheap properties far from major cities. But that short-lived boom has left the town with more problems than promise. Median prices, once incredibly low, rose to around $220,000 by 2022. That may sound modest, but with local household incomes averaging only $38,000, even those prices are difficult to sustain in the face of high mortgage rates. The math simply doesn't add up for most residents. Today, homes sit on the market for 120 days or more, and inventory continues to build. The demand spike from affordability seekers and isolation-driven buyers has disappeared, leaving sellers with few options. Price cuts are common, but buyers are limited. Investors who hoped Holbrook would become the hidden gem of Arizona are now facing properties that are difficult to rent and even harder to resell. Holbrook still offers history and charm, but from a housing perspective, 2025 has exposed its weaknesses. Without strong jobs, steady migration, or rental demand, the risk of buying here far outweighs the low sticker price. Number 4. Buckeye. At number 4 is Buckeye, located on the far western edge of the Phoenix metro. For years, Buckeye was marketed as the future of Arizona growth. Endless land, vast subdivisions, and brand new communities built on the promise of population expansion. But in 2025, that gamble has turned into one of the riskiest bets in the state. Median home prices reached about $400,000 at the peak. But builders didn't stop there. They kept acquiring land and building aggressively, assuming that demand would keep flowing. Today, that supply has far outpaced reality. Inventory has exploded, with listings up over 55% year over year, and homes now sit for around 115 days before finding a buyer. Builders are doing everything to move properties, slashing prices by $40,000 to $70,000, offering free amenities, and even subsidizing interest rates. Yet demand is so weak that many projects remain full of unsold homes. Adding to the uncertainty are long-term water supply concerns, questions that make buyers think twice before committing to a brand new home in the desert. Buckeye's strategy of build it and they will come has backfired. What was once Arizona's fastest-growing suburb now risks becoming a sprawling landscape of unsold homes and declining values. Number 3, Mesa. At number 3 is Mesa, one of Arizona's largest and most established cities. Known for its diverse economy and strong industries in aerospace, tech, and healthcare, Mesa seemed like a safe place to invest. But even big cities aren't immune to downturns, and in 2025, Mesa's housing market is wobbling. Median prices climbed to around $480,000, driven by families seeking more affordable homes than Central Phoenix and by investors betting on long-term stability. But supply has surged, migration has slowed, and mortgage rates remain stubbornly high. For local households earning around $70,000, affordability has collapsed. Inventory is up more than 45% year over year, and the average home now sits for 95 days before selling. Price cuts are spreading, and speculative investors from the boom years are rushing to offload properties. Even rental investors are feeling the pinch, with rising costs eating into margins. Mesa's downturn is particularly concerning because of its size. As one of the anchors of the Phoenix Metro, a slowdown here affects not just local homeowners, but the broader regional market. For 2025 buyers, Mesa is a city where risk outweighs reward. Number 2, Scottsdale. Number 2 is Scottsdale, long branded as Arizona's luxury capital, with its upscale resorts, golf courses, high-end shopping, and reputation for exclusivity. Scottsdale has always commanded premium prices. But in 2025, that luxury market is under strain. Median home prices regularly exceeded $900,000, supported by wealthy retirees, second home buyers, and investors banking on rental income. But that pool of buyers has shrunk, with a slower economy, persistent 7% mortgage rates, and growing costs of ownership, like steep HOA fees. Demand for multi-million-dollar homes has weakened. Inventory in Scottsdale's luxury market has jumped over 30% year over year, and homes now sit for an average of 110 days. Price cuts are hitting even the top tier of the market, with multi-million-dollar properties seeing six-figure reductions. Short-term rental investors are also leaving, no longer able to generate the returns they once enjoyed. Scottsdale still shines as a brand, but in 2025, owning here is a high-risk play. Buyers entering now may find themselves stuck with properties that take months to sell and values that continue to soften. Number 1, Phoenix. Finally, topping the list is Phoenix, Arizona's largest city, and once one of the hottest real estate markets in the entire country. For years, Phoenix thrived on rapid migration, aggressive investor activity, and relentless new construction. But in 2025, that engine has stalled, and the consequences are dramatic. During the boom, builders flooded the valley with new projects, betting that the demand would never slow. Median prices soared, and Phoenix became a magnet for everyone from first-time buyers to iBuyers and institutional investors. But with mortgage rates near 7%, investor pullback, and water scarcity concerns dominating headlines, demand has collapsed. Today, inventory is up more than 60% year over year, homes are sitting for around 130 days, and price reductions are widespread. Builders are piling on incentives, but even that isn't enough to clear the backlog. Distressed sales and foreclosures are re-emerging, adding further downward pressure. Phoenix's sheer size magnifies the risk. When values slide here, it impacts not just local homeowners, but the state's economy at large. For anyone buying in 2025, Phoenix represents the single most dangerous market in Arizona, with steep potential for financial loss. Arizona's 2025 housing market is a cautionary tale. The state's boom was built on cheap borrowing, endless building, and surging migration. Now those foundations have cracked under the weight of higher interest rates, oversupply, and rising costs. From Tucson's fading affordability to Scottsdale's shaky luxury sector and Phoenix's oversaturated sprawl, the risks are everywhere. For developers, it's a painful lesson in overbuilding. For local economies, it signals a slowdown in jobs and consumer confidence. And for buyers, it's a reminder that not every dream market lives up to its reputation. Does that mean no one should buy in Arizona? Not necessarily, but it does mean buyers must approach with extreme caution, realistic expectations, and strong financial buffers. In 2025, the difference between a smart investment and a costly mistake could be choosing the right city or avoiding the wrong one. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe to Housing Truths USA. We'll continue bringing you the facts, the risks, and the straight talk you need to make better real estate decisions.